Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you again for tuning in. I am Paul Rossi, Chief Pilot and owner of 910 Drones. I have a bachelor's degree in aeronautics from Embry Riddle Aeronautical University. I worked as an aircraft electrician on helicopters in the United States Army. After that, I did a little contract work on fixed wing aircraft, the Osprey, C-17, A-29 Tucano. So I have a good background in electronics. Since then, I've been able to launch and kick off 910 Drones. We've been in business for a little over 2 years, and it's been very exciting being able to watch the industry grow. We have a lot of great folks here in North Carolina at the state level, within different city governments, within private business, that's really helping push and promote the UAS industry. I'm also the community outreach coordinator with the North Carolina AUVSI chapter, and we're kicking off. We are looking forward to just reaching out and help building that network of drone operators here in North Carolina, providing educational opportunities and network opportunities for individuals, organizations, businesses, public safety agencies. So if you're interested in learning more about a larger drone community for the state, you can reach out and I can talk to you more about AUVSI. But we're here to all hear a little bit about drone mapping, software, hardware, and kind of operating procedures that are common within a drone mapping. We're not going to dive deeply into anything specific. Agriculture mapping, thermal imaging mapping. We're not going to dive into the sciences or intricacies into each thing. We're just going to kind of cover a generic software from a visual standpoint, and hardware, and then procedures that you could apply just across the board. So let's dive into get into hardware. What we're seeing now in the industry, at least kind of from a standards point, when it comes to visual mapping, using a RGB visual camera in order to collect data to present a ortho photo or a 3D model. What we're seeing is a standard of a 20 megapixel sensor. The purpose of that is the 20 megapixel sensor compared to the 12 megapixel sensor, it's going to pack a lot more data per photo. You're going to be able to fly at a higher altitude and still have a very good GSD, which is how much of that pixel has to cover the ground. So the higher you get, the more ground that one pixel is covering, so the less accurate the data is. So if you have a 12 megapixel drone, you're going to have to fly at lower altitudes in order to pick up as much data, in a sense. So a 20 megapixel sensor is going to let you fly higher, and that's important because the higher you fly, the more image you can capture, and the more image you can capture, the less photos you have to take. The less photos you have to take, the less time the drone has to be in the air, the quicker you can be on and off the job. So again, we're talking like entry level commercial here is where we're going to get started with the Phantom 4 Pro. So this is a common platform. The North Carolina State Highway Patrol is rocking these drones right here. The accident investigators drive around. When they come up on a significant accident, they can get this drone up in the air because of its vertical takeoff and landing capabilities. It can be on a street. It could be in an area that's a little bit congested. You can get this thing up in the air, and you can map pretty quickly using some of the softwares that we're going to talk about. This drone right here has that 20 megapixel sensor. Also, this has a mechanical shutter. So pixels, good. you've got mapping with like 42 megapixel cameras. The importance with that is you want to be high. It's really so you can decrease your altitude. You get into such high pixels, just data amount is so high that processing is just crazy. But there are platforms that folks are flying with 40 megapixel cameras. Again, I believe that's so they can stay at higher altitudes. This platform, 20 megapixels, but mechanical shutter. So mechanical shutter, if you are not big into photography, but you're big into drones, one thing you might not be familiar with is the shutter on your camera. And what's the shutter? That's just the unit, not mechanical, that's the piece of that camera that's opening up to allow light to come in. When you have a mechanical shutter, what you're doing is you're exposing the entire picture at one time. So that picture, boom, is being captured and then moved on. If you have a rolling shutter or a leaf shutter, what's happening is you're only actually exposing a portion of the photo, and then a little bit later, the other portion of the photo is getting exposed. So if you're using a rolling shutter and the drone's moving, you're actually taking that one picture at two different times. So you're gonna have movement in the picture. You might not be able to see that in still objects, but what that's doing is it's altering your data. It's altering those GPS tie points that's going to give you accurate data. So the mechanical shutter that comes with the Phantom 4 Pro is what makes it a big advantage versus some other cameras on the market. If you have a Phantom 4 standard, you can map with it. It's a 12 megapixel camera. It has a rolling shutter or a leaf shutter. But when you map with it, maybe if it's Pix4D, if it's DroneDeploy, most likely it's going to stop the drone, take a picture, and then start again. Stop the drone, take a picture. So as long as that camera is just dead still, the rolling shutter will have no impact. The benefit of the Phantom 4 Pro, mechanical shutter, 20 megapixels, you can just fly high and fast without having to stop. One other thing about cameras and the shutters and photogrammetry is old. Photogrammetry is not a new science. We've been stitching imagery. I can't remember, I wish I could remember the date. I'm not a professional photogrammetrist. I understand mapping with drones. But there was a point, you know, we used to take images, and you can see it in old movies, you know, you lay the pictures down on a table just so that they overlap and you can create that larger picture. With the military, they used to put cameras, I don't know which model aircraft, something larger, and they would have a rail system. So as the plane was flying forward, because mechanical shutters didn't exist, they had a rolling shutter camera. So the camera would actually slide backwards on a track system. So when it was taking a picture, the plane was moving forward, but the camera was staying in the exact same position. And that's how they were compensating for any type of motion blur when they were putting maps together back in the day. Phantom 4 Pro, when you're talking entry level, that's kind of like the standard go-to. You can map. Done projects with surveyors locally here in North Carolina with just a few ground control points. Holy Moses. With a few ground control points, can't control that. I apologize if you can hear this barking dog, but just got to roll with it. Work from home. So, goodness. Ground control points. So flying the Phantom 4 Pro, 20 megapixel mechanical shutter, commercial off the shelf, been able to get red hot results both on the horizontal and vertical plane when using 5 tie points. So there is use cases for these products. It's not, hey, we're gonna go use this in order to build the 50-story building. But when we're doing hard surface, again, I have to say this, I'm glad I've got to this point. When we're working with hard surfaces, these visual cameras work well. When we start bringing in vegetation, if you need to know the exact, what is our actual surface level of this terrain, when you're using visual imagery and you start stitching grass, depending on that elevation, you're going to get very unreliable results, or not unreliable, depending on what accuracy your project needs. You're just not going to really be able to get down to the root, into that base layer of soil. So great for hard surfaces, not what you're using in a wooded area. One thing I want to bring in here, which is newer, I always like to mention some different platforms for commercial, entry-level pilots. Your Phantom 4, again, you've got a product. We see a lot of bands coming in, a lot of folks talking about DJI and just security concerns. We have this product right here. You got the Skydio 2. Recently, I've been reading, I've had this not for a very long time. I didn't get involved with this product to map with, even though they've been marketing it. This to me is the autonomous marketing drone that you just capture video with. It's got a lot of great qualities. So what I would like to mention just about this drone is they have, while the sensor's not there, 12 megapixels, they have incorporated the mapping capabilities, and we have seen from their website that they're wanting to, put this in a dock, have this sit at a construction site where it needs to be mapped regularly. And because of its autonomous, this drone will just pop up in the air, automatically fly that same mapping mission each time you send it out. That's great, because if it comes back and it docks and, hey, it processes the images without putting somebody out, well, this crosses that 107 line, which is the question I've been asking myself. But if this is autonomously popping up in the air, who's considered the visual observer and or the pilot at that point? So it's a great system, and I think it will be there. Automation is great. I see here just popping up. Oh, maybe I shouldn't jump in the chat. We got quite a busy chat here. Crystal clear. 20 checkpoints to establish a consistent map. So I think initially with some mapping, when I've started mapping and ran some tests, I did a lot of things similar to the white papers that I'd seen coming out online. One of them was like through DroneDeploy. And yeah, that was along with PLS. I am not a PLS. 910 Drones is not a PLS. We do not provide, signed off maps. We work with surveyors who certify the work that they're putting out. With that said, initially, when we first started surveying, we went out and we mapped some locations with the drone that had already been surveyed by ground crews. And just like DroneDeploy and these other companies have done in their white papers, we went through, we used, I think the most was 6 ground control points where we actually put in the coordinates. But then we went through, and with a specific level of accuracy, we were able to check, again, it was 25 different points, and comparing the results from the drone to the results that were taken from the ground crew, we were getting red hot results. So really, I think depending on the size of your project is going to determine how many actual ground control points you'll need to set and tie into your map. Okay, we can get over to that. I got a question coming in from Troy. We'll answer that now. So Troy asked, You mentioned megapixel resolution. Is sensor size also important? That is a phenomenal question, and it's certainly one that I will be looking into to understand more. From an intro to drone mapping level, that's I would say that's a little bit a solid, good question. That I would go with that larger sensor size. If I were to just think quick right off the cuff, I know the Mavic, the Phantom 4 Pro has that 1-inch sensor. I know that the goodness, just losing it here. The Mavic 2 Pro has that 1-inch sensor. I know that the EB is flying with a pretty serious sensor, either a 1 or a 4/3. So yes, sensor size is definitely the larger sensor size that you can get, the better, just similarly to the megapixels. So thanks for that question, Troy. And Hugo has a hand raised. Well, I'm not on again. Hugo, I see you raising your hand there. But we're gonna move on. If you have a question, please, you can throw your questions in there. If you want to talk directly to sensor size in your comments, please, you can leave that right there in the webinar chat. Not ignoring you, Hugo. Well, let's see, I just want to confirm. Here we go, okay. So one other thing now, I've showed you these platforms here. I do want to show you guys, I'm gonna go back to a screen share, is the other platforms. One other platform that is available. Let's bring up, that I work with a local surveyor who has this and runs with the Pix4D. I forget what I'm typing in. I don't even know the website. Apologies, I didn't have this brought up already. This is a fixed wing aircraft. I'm all about, with 910 Drones, is constantly pushing and promoting and informing users about all the platforms that are out and available. So one of our clients that we work with, they actually own their own EB drone. So when we do certain jobs for them that are on sometimes that larger scale, we will connect with them first, and we'll go out and we'll fly the EB. Otherwise, you know, we can take out the Phantom on some of their smaller, tighter projects. But the EB is a fixed wing platform that takes off, you know, a few rocks, and that thing will take off right out of your hands. It does need a little bit of space to come in for a landing. It also does have the capabilities to come down in a more spiral descent in order to reduce its landing footprint. This aircraft is, unlike the Phantom 4 Pro, which is your kind of entry level, this aircraft right here has adjustable payloads. So you could use the RGB, you could put your infrared in here for agriculture, and then I'm 99.9% certain the thermal optics have come out and are available for this platform. This is huge. Folks talk about, we got the Skydio and this and that, but we do have SenseFly, who is the manufacturer of this aircraft, headquartered here in Raleigh. So it's great to have a local business. If you're tuning in here and you're maybe you're doing intro to maps, but you're on a little bit of a different level, this could totally be a platform so you can reach out and get connected with a local company that's offering a fixed wing solution for mapping. And I want to see if we have any questions. All right. So we kind of know platforms, what we can use, what's important, megapixels, 20 better than 12. What you're seeing across the industry as a standard is around the 20. When you get onto larger, more complex projects, you'll see different sizes. Again, sensor, larger sensor, better. Autel Evo just released a drone. One has the half-inch sensor, one has a 1-inch sensor. You have the Pro. If you're looking at Autel Evo 2, you want to do mapping, consider that Pro version. If we have any other questions about hardware, any hardware that's available for mapping, we can move on. And what I want to jump into now, we go back to screen share. Sharing my own screen, okay. Here we go. Okay. So we know what drone we have. And then real quick, I've introduced a few platforms. I know some people tuning in might say, well, I have a Mavic or I have a Phantom standard. You know, how come I didn't see my drone? Just covering the basics as far as sensor sizes, your Phantom standard, your Mavic 2, your Inspire, if you have an Inspire 2 series aircraft, a Matrice series aircraft, all these aircraft are also going to be able to leverage the software that we're about to go through in order to do mapping and modeling. So it looks like, let's just jump in real quick. I need assistance. Yes, the dog is unhappy with the webinar. Thank you for asking, Dan. Now, what software? So I have my drone. Now I have my hardware. I know what I'm going to use. I got my batteries charged up. I got my clearance to fly. I hope anyone tuning in, whether you are a Part 107 holder or just a recreational pilot, you don't have to be operating commercially in order to fly for mapping and modeling. And everybody enjoys making maps and making models. If you're doing this recreationally, learning how to map and model could be your entry point into possibly doing commercial operations. So I'm just glad that anyone here is tuning in to check out what's available for mapping. So you got your drone, you're ready to go. You've got your, if you're within 5 miles of an airport, you've got your authorization to fly. If you're not within 5 miles of an airport, you are checking the skies, you're making sure everything's safe, and you're good to go. You're launching and recovering from property that you either have permission from or maybe it's public. So what do? How do you get this drone to fly to capture these pictures? Because photogrammetry, in order to make that map and model, we need to stitch together images, and the images have to have very specific amounts of overlap in order to tie together and look good. So what we use is a software. There are quite a few software available for drone pilots to use in order to get their drone to fly in the typical, what I would call the lawnmower pattern, which is back and forth, taking images that you can stitch together. The first one that I'll jump into here is Pix4D Capture. Pix4D Capture is, when Pix4D first came out, it was strictly a platform software that you had to download to your system and or your computer. So once you had it on your computer, you actually had to do all the processing yourself. What that meant is you had to have a computer that could really handle, I'm not a computer person, so don't knock me here, but basically it didn't have the processing power, or you had to have a computer with some crazy processing power. Engineering companies, individuals working in like a CAD, an AutoCAD, these three-dimensional spaces, have computers that can handle that kind of processing. And what I've seen is surveying engineering drone users are leveraging Pix4D. I think that has to do with the fact that they can handle the processing. And from my experience, Pix4D Capture offers a lot more user control. Once you input your images, you can manipulate the model, manipulate drawing a blank. You're able to manipulate your point cloud to an extent that you just cannot do in some of the other softwares. So Pix4D Capture offers you a flying platform, so you can go ahead and I'm going to jump in to cut to here. With Pix4D Mapper, you're going to be opened up to the ability to plan flights. Goodness. Oh, why? Goodness, trial expired. Okay. Well, bring this up. With Pix4D Mapper, you're able to plan your flights. I'm not going to be able to show it, but you'll see it. It's going to be the same things in the other software. You can utilize Pix4D to plan your flights on your computer or your cell phone. You open up that app and you're able to launch and fly the drone. And you can process images, you can fly your flights, and you can process your images with Pix4D. You still have the ability to use your computer for processing, but they have since now included cloud processing. So for independent drone service providers, it's a more efficient way to have a mapping engine. Having to invest in a computer that could handle that type of computing speed just wasn't a viable option. So more drone service providers, entrepreneurial drone business owners are able to leverage Pix4D. Pix4D, I'll just want to go back, and they've right here, you can see they've been able to make available a whole new suite of options that's not just catering toward the surveyor, the engineer himself. You have Pix4D BIM, which is focused more on just that building information modeling. You have Pix4D Model, which is tailored to individuals that just want to create models. So if you're in real estate, any type of marketing, you're like, hey, I just want to pay this price. We're just kicking out models. I don't need DSMs. I don't need elevation reports. That's awesome, and it's a great new feature. And then you have Pix4D React, which is going after the public safety. So anybody here that's connected with a public safety agency or organization, Pix4D React is a very fast mapping engine, creating maps within minutes versus hours. So Pix4D offers a great suite of options and available. What I want to talk about next from a mapping standpoint is something that's very new. Excuse me, something very new to the drone community and very much focused on public safety. When you're responding to a call and it's an accident, whether it's on the highway, whether it's on a side road, you are potentially impeding traffic and you need to gather all the information, but do it in a quick amount of time. Having to, with engineering, surveying, agriculture, construction, you know the site that you're mapping and you know the location that you're going to, so you can plan your flight ahead of time. In public safety, you have to, excuse me, in public safety, you have to map, you have to get to the scene, you don't know what it's gonna look like, and then you need to plan the flight and have the drone get up in the air all safely. So what this company Skybrowse did was they said, hey, for public safety individuals, how can we make this easier? So they got rid of all the pictures whatsoever, and they've introduced a mapping option so that you can get to the scene and you can just pop your drone up with a click of a button. The drone will do 2 rotations around that object, collecting video only, and it will take that video and it will process that video imagery into a map that public safety agencies can then do crush factor analysis on, measurements on, bring that model into a potential court if necessary to use as evidence. But what it is it's mapping in minutes. So it's not just processing quickly, but it's literally minutes of flight time. So you're just 2 circles collecting nothing but video. This is an extremely interesting new mapping technology that is out and available, and something that we just want to bring more pilots' attention to and awareness to. If you reach out, if you're with public safety, if you're interested in this mapping service, just reach out. I can get you connected with individuals at the company, and they'll throw you that 2-week testing trial so you can run it through, run it through the ropes and kind of figure out, is this a good solution for you? Again, that's Skybrowse, and that's skybrowse.com. So I want to check if there's any questions. I'm not seeing any new questions. All right, so then the third mapping engine that I'm going to jump into here is, this is SketchRap. The third software that I'm going to jump into is DroneDeploy. When I first got started in drones, it was DroneDeploy, Pix4D. There's a company called DatUmate, and they are out of Germany, I think. DatUmate is big construction heavy, very expensive. DatUmate didn't end up making the cut. And DroneDeploy was one option that was available, allowed cloud processing, so you did not have to own you could just have a basic laptop. As long as you could get those images uploaded to via the cloud, you had no issues with mapping. All the processing was done in the cloud. And that was the reason that I went with and really was heavily involved with DroneDeploy since we've started. Again, it's very important if you're getting involved with drones, if you're a small business drone owner, if you're someone that's looking to get into the drone industry, you need to learn all of these platforms. You need to learn each software, and you need to learn it as well as you can. The reason that is you don't know what, if you're an individual looking for a job, you don't know what your potential employer might be using. And they might be using 2 or 3. So you're making yourself more of a valuable asset to a future employer by understanding the different softwares available. It's no different than being able to understand the different drone platforms out there. If all you've ever flown is just one kind of drone, and then all of a sudden you get put into a situation where you need to fly this now, yeah, you're going to be able to fly it, but are you going to be as efficient as you possibly can? So, and then from a small business, contractor position, you never know what your client's requests might be. You never know what your customer might be working in, and you never know what opportunities might come your way. So learn all the different platforms that are available. They all offer some type of trial, and yeah, that's just, again, what I highly recommend. So here, talk about DroneDeploy. DroneDeploy is great. They are based in California. I got the same, no, Mark House. Okay. They are, they've got headquarters in California. They're responsive. They've got good customer service. And I've liked working with DroneDeploy's product. So what I want to go through, and I'm going to jump over to this other window, I want to go through the planning phase of technology. I want to go through old account. Where's the map? Dang incognito tab. All right, here we go. Getting frustrating. All right, we'll go back. So projects. So what I want to walk through is just a little bit to show you guys how the computer portion of planning a flight works. So we're clicking create a new project. We can type in our address right here. Pix4D is going to work very similar to the way DroneDeploy works. SkyBrowse won't have this map planning option at this point because SkyBrowse is based on just getting there, selecting your point, and then circling around it. So I'm going to show you a model of the market house, which anyone local in this webinar right now would be familiar with the market house. So this is our flight planning engine in DroneDeploy. We click create project here, and what that's going to do is ask us to give it a project name. We're going to call this mapping webinar. If this is what your, whatever your client project is, you might give it a client name, put a date. That's just specific to you. It's going to help you figure back when you start generating more projects. Under each project, you can have multiple flights. So if you have one site, you can just make it that site, knowing that you can put different flights underneath it. So we're going to click to just build out a mapping model flight. And what that's going to bring up is our options here on the left-hand side of the screen. You're going to notice our time of flight in minutes, our size, the area that we're flying, how many images we're taking, and then how many batteries is it going to take us to fly this mission. This is a common information that you will find across all mapping platforms. As you adjust your area, change your altitudes, you're always going to need to know these things. How long does it take? What's the area I'm mapping? how many pictures am I taking, and how many batteries will this mission take? So before you're leaving the office, if you're doing a mapping job, you will know all of this. Got a question hopping in. All right, here we go. Negative on the question. Apologies. Again, my question guy just continues to, I have about 4 people here working, and one person's taking questions, and every time a question comes up, he keeps interrupting me, but he is me. So thank you everyone for just rolling with me. These numbers are important. Before you leave the office, you're going to know exactly what it is that you're going to need. I'm going to need 4 batteries. If that thing says you need 3 batteries, you better send someone out there. You know, you're going out there with 2 batteries, with 2 extra batteries. So, right, that's the practice that we do here at 910 Drones. Whatever that battery number says, you're always bringing at least 2 extra. If it's a bigger job, then hey, maybe you're bringing 3 extra. Important factors here. Well, what I want to first do is show you how you drag and drop to plan your flight. So I want to map the market house. So I am going to just take these dots and you just pick them up, drag and drop. You can zoom in, you can see your area. And I'm just going to drag these dots. And as I'm dragging these dots, notice over here that the flight time's changing, the acres, and the number of images is changing. So we're bringing this out, and what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to hit all around the market house. So we want to create a really cool market house model. So now you can see we're at an elevation of 200 feet, 2 minutes, 39 seconds. Well, at 200 feet, we're going to get a 0.7 inches per pixel, which is, I mean, it's okay. It's not the worst. It's not the best. Suggested. So in this blue, it's going to say, based on the size of your mapping area, we suggest that you fly at least 120 feet or lower. So we're going to bump this down to 100 feet. And notice when we bump down to 100 feet, our lawnmower pattern changes. Because the lower we get, the lower the drone gets, and the closer, I'm going to grab a small drone here. Grab this. Let me see, can you see this? So this is the market house. The lower that the drone gets, of course it's black, it's dark. So the lower the drone gets, the closer to the market house, the less area it can see. The higher it is, the more area. So the closer the drone gets to the market house, the more pictures it has to take. It has to go back and forth more times to get all that overlap coverage. So what you can see is when we go back up to 200, 210, 238, 36, when we drop down to 100, our flight time almost doubles and our number of pictures increases. Our resolution also increases. So now, because we're lower, when we stitch the pictures together, we're going to get a much clearer, higher resolution photo. And it should help us with tying our 3D model together because we're going to have much more information. There are ways in the different softwares to enhance your picture collection. When you're doing just an ortho image, you're going to typically take straight down photos. If you're just looking for that overall top-down shot, camera straight down. When you're flying in order to capture a 3D object or subject like this building, you are going to want to put on maybe enhanced 3D to where now a green line comes around this model. Now the drone's going to actually fly instead of just over straight up and down. Now the drone's going to fly in a circle. This is pretty awful imaging, but the drone will fly in a circle, taking pictures with a angled gimbal. So you're going to be getting oblique photos, and you're going to pick up the details on the sides of the building. This right here is your basic rundown of planning. In your advanced settings, we'll go through here real quick. You're going to go, you can leave automatic on, or you can always turn automatic settings off, and you can then adjust these settings. Notice when I adjust the overlap settings on the side, so the side, how much does each picture overlap on the sides, that the flight time decreases because it has to take less patterns. So if you're to jump into any of these softwares, if you're just getting into mapping and you're doing these trial runs, you're going to slide these things around and notice how flight time changes. When you get into commercial work, you will find, if you're surveying, engineering, contracting with customers, your customers and clients may give you specific settings that they want you to put in. Like if you're doing thermal jobs, you might see 90% side lap, 90% front lap. If you're just doing a big ortho photo for a marketing purpose, or maybe what is it called? It's where a lot of new houses get built. If you're just going to put together an ortho image for a developer that's wanting to see the progress of a new development, you might just go with a 65% overlap because you're not looking for high details. This is not an advanced class on mapping, so I'm not going to jump into these different options that are available, but each DroneDeploy and Pix4D are both great and have different add-ons and capabilities to help you capture amazing 3D models. So I want to run through the simulator. So once our flight, now that our flight's planned, we're going to go ahead and start our simulation. And what you can see is if we were here, our drone is right here. It's moving around a little bit. Our home location is right here. So we've got our drone and our aircraft. You can see our flight plan is up. What we're going to have, and this is similar with Pix4D, DroneDeploy, and SkyBrowse. You're going to get a blue, not a blue icon on all of them, but you're going to get Start Preflight Checklist. So down here, we're going to click Start Preflight Checklist, and you're going to see permissions. So, okay. So permissions, what's happening is this drone is automatically going through its own checklist. When it says permissions, you have a DJI drone attached, you have a Skydio drone attached, it knows if it's in an area where it shouldn't take off. And if you have your authorization set, it's going to know that you have that authorization code input, and it's going to give you a green check for permissions. Next, drone. It's going to be your remote. So if we had our Phantom 4 connected, now it's going to check the drone. And when it's checking the drone, it's going to be checking to make sure that I don't know why I held the remote controller up. The drone, everybody's like, that's not a drone. So we're going to hold the drone. The drone is going to now run through its check, and it's going to say, okay, IMU is good. Okay, GPS is good. Okay, the aircraft, the drone itself is good. Green check. Next, camera. What is it doing to check the camera? Well, after you run your first mapping mission, you might notice that the first picture you have is a picture of the ground. What the system is doing is it's taking a picture, a test picture with the camera before it leaves the ground, and it's confirming that the camera is set properly and that you have enough. This could happen during the drone portion, but you're checking the SD card as well to confirm that there's enough storage space in order to fly the mission. If the camera is good and everything is working well, you're going to get a green check. Then it's going to go to controller. it's going to confirm that you have a good connection between the controller and the drone, the controller and your cellular device. That is good, green. Lastly, it's going to check the flight plan. It's going to just re-go through all of its numbers and its pattern, and it's going to make sure that, yes, this flight plan is good to go. All green checks. Now, at this point, this UAS just did a self check. So it checked itself and its internal components. What you, as the remote piloting command, who is the final responsible authority for everything that the drone does or doesn't do, now you're doing your check and you're confirming that the area is free and clear. There's no manned air traffic. There's no, because you've already checked to make sure you can fly here. But at this point, this is a last check. Okay, there's no, again, manned aircraft. In your launch and recovery site, you have a good secure area, no kids, no animals, no unwanted, unforeseen objects are going to approach the aircraft. And you're saying, goodness, can everybody? Looks like I just lost for a second. So we still got 36. All right, my connection went down. I'm going to go back to sharing the screen. Let me jump in the chat real quick. You're back. Okay. Adjust the camera view when you're doing 3D. Okay. Oh, I'm back. Okay. Everybody's got me. Only because I can. It was just okay. Does it adjust the camera? Oh, I can't wait to go back and check out these comments. But anyway, yes. So if you're doing a 3D, if you put the drone, I'm just checking this question now. There is a little question section. If you type the questions directly into the question section, they'll become more visible. How do you do that? Sloped area. Okay, I see that question, high sloped area. I'm not going to go too far back. Great, yes, so I'm back, I'm here. We were about to take off. I saw something about a high sloped area. Before we take off, these models have, these softwares have introduced new features so that you can do terrain awareness. So they're pulling information from local GIS and they're actually mapping per the terrain. So if you're setting the drone to stay 120 feet above the ground, the drone will actually increase its altitude based on the terrain data that's imported from GIS. So I can't sit here and say it's 100% accurate, but yes, these companies, the softwares, they are starting to implement. And also I think what it is this drone doesn't have a sensor that tells itself what directly its elevation. I think we may see soon where we get some type of laser, some type of confirmed height above ground level. That'll still get tricky though, because then as trees come into play. So that's a really good question. The second question, does it adjust the angle during a 3D mapping mission? Yes, it will fly. If it's in a 3D mapping mission, it will usually take angled images all the time. On that perimeter shot, it will adjust by itself. Now that we've got all of our green checks and we are solid, good to go. Yeah, my sim drone's turn around a little bit. Here we go. He's moving around because he's ready to go. So everything's green. We're going to hit start flight. And this is going to go really, really fast, really fast. The drone won't move this fast. And it actually doesn't give us our speed or anything. But this is what you will see on your remote that's connected to your aircraft as you are mapping. The drone is going to, and this is pretty squiggly. It just probably has some bad GPS in the simulator here. But usually you will get very straight lines. And right now this drone is just going back and forth and it's snapping pictures. It's just automatically going to be snapping images. This is not a time as the pilot in command to be doing nothing. You are maintaining sight of this aircraft and you are prepared for something bad to happen. What you're also doing, and you're not going to be able to see in this, oh yes, right here in this demonstration, I apologize. I'm going to pause the demonstration. If you look right here, you have your number of pictures and you have your time. I apologize. I was looking at satellites and things here. So as this drone's mapping, I'm hit play, watch the number count up, 65, 66, 67. It shouldn't be counting up. Now it's going into its circle mode. But it's circling around and this drone is taking those oblique images and that number is counting up 90, 92, 93. So as you're mapping, if you launch that drone and you look and you see that number's not counting up, it's possible that you're not actually taking pictures. So it's your responsibility while this is happening. Yes, it's flying by itself, but is it flying by itself and doing what it's supposed to? The entire time the drone's in the air, it's your responsibility for where it is and making sure that it's collecting the data that you put it up there to do. Once it's completed its flight path, it's going to automatically come home to land. You can take control of the drone on its way home, but when you're starting out, maybe just let that drone come right down. So it's going to say, hey, flight complete, connect the SD card in order to process your images. So once we process our images, we will get in our Explore section, and it's not going to be available here. And I'm going to show you the 3D model that was completed of the market house using oblique images. This was a combination of oblique imagery and nadir straight down. And I'm not sure how well this is going to come up in the webinar. I'm guessing I'm pulling, oh, here we go. So this was done using automated flight to capture the top-down shots, and then a good amount, this is over 400 photos, a good amount manual flight of actually moving the drone around in order to capture all the rest of the detailed quality of the facade of the building. You can see here, this is just for the Phantom 4 Pro, which is a $2,000 drone. And you get pretty phenomenal visual results. You can see the gap here in between the wall and the AC unit. You don't have to have very high-grade equipment to capture phenomenal models to produce good results. You just have to have good practices. You need to understand what it is you're doing and a little bit about photogrammetry and how the science works. Not about, again, this is a basic intro to modeling. Can LiDAR do great things? Yes. Is it expensive? Yes. But as a drone operator that's getting into the business, or a drone operator that's already in the business and wants to take it to the next level, it's about understanding how this data ties together in order to understand how you can make it better. That is DroneDeploy. Again, Pix4D, a lot of these other platforms operate in a very similar manner. I'm just going to see right here, right? So drop the questions. Let me bring up, gosh, I keep bringing those questions up. One last thing I want to show is from a standpoint of a woods fire that had taken place, to where you can leverage a UAS to map a large area. In the event of a woods fire, you might actually have to, you don't know the significant area of coverage, so you may have to go out and find these points and stand there and plan the map when you're doing it. And you could be in an environment where, in order to maintain visual line of sight, you're actually having to move while the drone's moving to keep it in sight. This right here was an example of a local woods fire. I'm just gonna, this had to be planned in the field. I'll bring up the existing map, but this is an example of where just a 2D ortho photo. I'm gonna zoom out just a little bit. With these softwares, DroneDeploy, Pix4D, you have the ability to export this information now in geo-referenced formats, so that your customers and clients can input them into any GIS or mapping database, and they can pull that information. So this is what you would see if you went to the standard Google Maps. You'd see some clouds, you'd see good, healthy looking forest. So after this fire came through, we're able to pop up a map that we can collect, and almost within the same day, we can bring something to help figure out maybe what was the cause of the fire, how can we start working on replanting these forests if they need to be replanted. But you can look and you can just see the almost blacked out, scarred in a sense, parts on the map. And you can zoom in. This is super high quality, so it might take, well, here we go. Obviously the trees aren't put together perfectly, but because this isn't engineering, you don't need really very detailed results. We're not pulling elevation information from this. We're not pulling waypoints from this. We just want to see what area got burned, and you can clearly tell that the fire break lines that they put in worked, and we were able to pull acreage of burns from this. Mapping is just a phenomenal tool that can be covered in many different fields. It can be used. It can be used for golf course management. You can map something. You can see it from places that you just couldn't, from housing, marketing, real estate, from commercial investments, doing commercial properties. You have events. You can model events, venues, ice skating parks in the middle of the street. You can capture something forever and put that up on a website. And then engineering. And then here's, you've got airports. There's so many things and industries that mapping jumps into and crosses into. I just want to make sure, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to jump on here. So that was the 3D model that you saw. Taking it another level, where things go to next with 3D printers. But this, I just want to show you because we're working with schools through 910 Drones, and we're constantly finding ways to just push things forward, and how can certain things be used. But with the process that I just walked anyone watching through, we went out, we mapped the market house. I took a few hundred photos, automatic mode and manual mode, put those images into a photogrammetry software, which I just showed you today, and created an OBJ file. I wish there was more time where I could just go through all the different output forms, DTMs, elevation, plant health reports, OBJs, cloud points, but it's a lot to talk about. But this, you can create OBJ files. And what can you do with OBJ files? OBJ files are the files of the future. That is what a 3D printer prints. So most people are saying, hey, do you have a PDF? Do you have a JPEG? Do you have a Word document? That's what we're putting through our standard printers, the printers that people have in their homes. Well, the files of the future are .obj files. That is what this is. I created an OBJ 3D model with a drone through pictures and then printed this with the help of a local 3D printer. Thank you, Richard. Shout out to Richard at SlewFPV on Instagram. But yeah, being able to print this, and we're just taking all this and we're putting it into something that actually exists that we can show our students, and it's taking it from the whole thing. Hey, it's not just drones. Drones are cool. Yeah, but what about drones? It's like saying, look at cars, or like, look at trucks. Yeah, but what can we do with trucks in order to enhance construction? What can we do with trucks in order to increase our roadways? What can we do? Enough with the trucks. I think you get my point. So it's drones, and anyone looking to further in the industry, the drone is step one. The drone's the easy part, the automated part, processing the data, and then what do we do with that data? How do we give that deliverable? Again, so just I want to touch a little on best practices, understanding your equipment, understanding your software, and then always putting safety first, understanding the federal regulations, using an application like Air Maps in order to get situational awareness. Can I fly here? If I can't fly here, let me not if I can't, but maybe I should reach out to someone. Build a community of pilots. Reach out to other pilots and ask them, hey, have you flown here before? Hey, can you do this? We are a community in a state that is very much helping to advance UAS. We need to work together. So if you have any questions about can I or can I not fly here, reach out to another drone operator and ask, and don't be afraid to ask. Safety, FAA, 400 feet, 5 miles of airport, follow. If you have any questions, can I or can I fly here, reach out. Find out if you're not here in North Carolina, if you're in another state, find out if there's a local drone company near you, similar to 910 Drones, and connect with them. And then your state. So here in North Carolina, we got the DOT rules and regulations. So just educate yourself. I promise you, I'm as much as a recreational pilot. I fly for fun all the time. I'm getting into this. I've got FPV. I'm not anti-FPV. I'm not only for GPS aircraft only. So I love flying and having fun, and I want to continue to be able to fly where I want, when I want. I'm not pro restrictions. So be safe, ask questions. As long as you're putting safety first, I think that you're always going to do well, no matter which avenue or route you decide to go within the drone industry. Other just kind of best practices, can't really think of anything. I just want to end. It looks like there's a couple more questions, so I'm just going to end this webinar with any questions that you have. So right now, please do tune in, type something in here. Again, I'm on my, hell yeah, okay, yeah, well, when you do the additional photos on a 3D model, do you use the automated settings, like timed photo? Okay, so that's a good question. Jim asks, when you do the additional photos on a 3D model manually, so flying manually, do you use any automated settings like timed photo? So I have seen that before where individuals will put a timer on um, on their photo. So take a photo every 2 seconds or every 3 seconds. I would suggest using that in your manual flight mode if you're maintaining a speed that's going to allow overlap. Basically, timed photos is exactly what these softwares are doing. It's calculating the speed of the aircraft and how often does it need to take the photo. So the software in automatic mode is just variably changing that time. What I would suggest is don't worry about constantly moving the drone. If you have a DJI product, I know for sure you can bring up your guidelines. So if you pop up the 9 blocks in your screen, you know that if the picture changes 1/3, that you now have a 60% overlap. So my recommendation would be, if you're going to do manual mapping photo capture, to bring up your guidelines, and you will have to do a little bit of staring at the screen. And that's why when you start doing this, make sure that you're in an area where there isn't obstacles, because you'll have to look at the screen, and once that piece moves 30%, click the next photo. Click the next photo. As you do more manual photo capture, you'll learn how much is needed and how much isn't needed, and you can get to the point where you're really just watching the drone, and you can watch how far is the drone moved, and in your head you kind of know, okay, time to take another picture. Again, if you're going to do manual capture, I recommend you do not want horizon. So keep that angle down and keep as much blue sky out of the pictures as you can. I hope that answered your question, Jim. It seems like the high cost is in processing side. I just did my first map yesterday with Drones Made Easy. It came out okay, but is not full featured. They charge processing on the individual map rather than monthly. Are there others that do that also? The monthly costs for DD and Pix4D are pretty high without the client covering them in the beginning. Yeah, so Drones Made Easy and some other solutions, drone, or is it Maps Made Easy? There's some other ones out there. Mapping is one of those spaces where you really, with Pix4D, DroneDeploy, again, Pix4D, if you're looking to do just models or just maps, it's kind of like what you want to do is go into it and just learn ortho photos, like understand ortho photos, understand modeling, and it's, if you can do photos, just ortho photos or just modeling, and maybe get a client, what I would highly recommend if you're just starting out, getting access to the software is what's going to open more opportunities for your business. So if you have to go out there and just identify one client that's willing to commit to you to do a single job for the cost of the software, whether that's $100, you tell your customer, I'm going to give you 2 maps a month for $100. It's what you have to do. You can get one client, you can pay for the software, and every additional client that you can start driving and bringing in is just revenue. It's revenue, it's revenue. So put yourself out there. If you want to get clients, you have to, in the beginning, if no one's demanding work from you, you've got to just kind of force the work on them with the intent that my work will be so good, my name will get out there, and now my demand will go up. Once your demand goes up, your price goes up, your schedule will fill up. If there's movement within your mapped area, how much does it affect the quality? i.e. cars driving by, someone working on a house, or people walking. So from my experience, and I'm not the developer of these softwares, I would say when you have so much overlap, if something's moving, it's not going to be able to recreate that object. So if a guy was here and then that person like moved over here and he is only in that one spot in like one photo here and one photo here, most likely that individual won't even appear in the map because he's not actually showing up in enough locations. That's common with vehicles. Vehicles are moving, unless the vehicle's moving with the drone, it's going to be out of the shot very quickly. So if it's vehicles or people walking, it's going to create blur. You're going to get some type of motion blur if a car moves. If it's a 3D model, it may completely omit that item altogether, but there is going to be an impact. That's why if you're doing, depending on the accuracy that you need, construction sites, projects like that, if it's for an actual informational standpoint, you can try to do them when it's less busy during certain hours, but then you got to kind of consider shading. For marketing type things, homes, just informational things, not as important, but very good question. Okay, I don't see in my chat here, I'm not seeing any other new questions pop up. I'm gonna go to the chat and I can't wait to always somebody. Yes, anyone, if Jerry is still on here, I just want to say, Jerry, that's absolutely correct. Anyone can fly the tablet, but a real pilot can handle themselves when things go wrong. Moving objects, a ghost. Awesome. And then I just would like to say to Vanel, thank you, Todd. If Vanel is still on, what is the most adequate drone for 3D elevation mapping? That's a tough question. I would have to know more about the terrain that you're trying to map itself. If you're, my first thought goes to maybe you're doing some grading work. So if you're talking dirt, compact soil, something like a Phantom 4 would work well. If that's tough. Elevation, if you're talking about building elevations, again, a Phantom 4 could potentially work depending on how the intricacies, like what's the nooks and crannies. Is there a lot of inner workings to what it is that you're mapping? But elevation mapping, so I'm thinking elevation. So if you're talking terrain mapping, because I did mention that the visual sensor wouldn't be great for terrain. There's LiDAR options that are available that are a little bit more expensive. But again, it really depends on exactly what you're looking for. You can reach out, anyone that has any questions about things that weren't covered or really to discuss things in more detail, please send me an email. That's Paul, PAULROSSI @910drones.com. I'm actually going to just type that right here into the chat. And then there's a phone number. So Paul Rossi @910drones.com, 910-978-0315. Please check us out on Facebook. Just search in Facebook 910drones.com or the @ and then 910drones. like and follow. That's where we're going to be putting out more information about events and informational sessions. And then 910drones.com, always putting information out there. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and appreciate you guys watching. So have a great night and enjoy your weekend.